How, how many people on the call today have worked with the homeless population? Can use the chat box or just speak up. I think I put everybody to sleep. Yani already. I think one person. All right. Okay. All right. So
I would say like half at least of the people that I'm seeing here, or a little bit over half.
all right. Very good. So we have quite a few people that, have a lot of experience. So certainly, I also am keen to learn from you, and there should be a lot of wisdom on the group. What is something that some of you within your experience with dealing with the homeless, like something that really touches you or, really touches your heart when you go out in working on the street with this specialized population? So let me ask a different question. What's your biggest problem dealing with this population?
I would actually answer the first question first. I say sorry, I don't know. I was just gonna answer, then I forgot. What the question was, what's the best thing you find in them? Is that
Yeah.
what you said?
Yeah. What's the
Yeah.
thing that you love the most about this ministry?
Um, I think it's pure love, like it's straightforward. Like you don't really have to carry anything with you. Honestly, not even meals, just coming with a an honest, loving heart or sincere heart to love these people and just make wanting to share with them the love of God. It's just so simple, straightforward. Like, and we know that God loves it so much because we see His hand every single time. Like, we just know that He loves it, and He blesses it so much because He loves the marginalized, and this is what He did when He was on earth. He really loves them, and so we just see God every time we go.
And
And
and somebody wrote in the chat, most of them don't take something, they don't need a lot. Um, a lot of them like to share. Yeah, that's
I would also want to share that if you were to think where, like, if Jesus was to be present in this day, you would probably find him with the most marginalized people, like hanging out with them. Something that I have learned, I think, a little bit uncomfortable of like what to say or what to speak or what to do. And I remember one of Abuna John Botros's sermons, he was saying, if you don't know where to start, just acknowledge people living in marginalized communities. Just acknowledge them, like stop, take time, and ask for their name and ask how their day is going, and just have like a small talk with them. And it goes a long way. And I think from my experience, I that kind of broke a big part of the ice that I was having.
anybody wants to talk about fears, concerns about the street ministry? Well, we have a very strong and passionate group. I'll start, if that's okay with you, I'll start sharing my slides. And as we go, if you have any questions, please put any questions in the chat box. Ask me to stop. So feel free. Let's keep this as interactive as possible. And I'm sure you all have a lot of wisdom that, I'm going to be learning from you. Oh, sorry. Give me 1 second. little bit of technical difficulty, but I will, give me 1 second.
As you prepare, I think Maggot sent a question, is it a safe ministry? I guess we'll learn more with Miriam as we go, but by God's grace, we've been doing it for over or about 3 years. Some of us have been doing it more than 3 years, and by God's grace, it's been such a blessing to whoever was able to attend it or come. So I would think so.
You know, in general, I would, think so. One of the things, so I work a lot with nurses who do a lot of street nursing. And one of the things they said that's very interesting, this population knows who cares for them, and they surround and protect the community to make sure that you keep coming. So they really value it. So overall, we don't see a lot of problems, or we've heard of a lot of problems, because people are so appreciative of the kindness of people coming in to serve them. So that's, even when people do street medicine, they're really well received. So we haven't heard of a lot of problems. So street ministries. So today what we want to be looking at is to develop effective communication skills rooted in Christian principles to enhance interactions with the homeless population. We want to be talking about how we're going to acquire knowledge and strategies to establish and maintain Christ-centered boundaries, and enhance our empathy and understanding towards individuals with homeless population. So I think I always love to start with the question, why? And when we know why, I think we always are then mindful and centered of next steps. And I think it really comes down to, my God, what a great thing you have prepared for me. What an honor you have prepared for me. And I love the verse Ephesians 2:10 that talks, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ to do good works, which God has prepared for us in advance for us to do. And really, I think if we start off thinking that this ministry is not me doing something or not us doing something, it is a gift that God has for us. I think just how we approach it may take us to that next level. We can say we serve to show God's, all of that, but this is my gift. And accordingly, I'm going to act and do based on that. I think what I wanted to start is really emphasize that many people are homeless as a result of many factors. Every day I get really smart people in our clinics that are super smart, that have had multiple degrees and ended up being homeless because they went into a depression, couldn't stay on top of their rent. They're people like you and me that walk every day. I had a guy that had a wound that got infested because the place he was living in had cockroaches. He had to go out on the street. But he's a very smart and eloquent man. Many people on the street are like you and me. And I think it's really important. They're not less than us. They're not those people. They are us. And accordingly, as us is how we're going to serve them. I was talking to one of my colleagues, and she said, certainly there is a large addiction in this population, but she goes, 9 out of 10 people she interviews were people with multiple degrees and great jobs and went to church like you and me, and all it took is one cocaine hit for it to change their life. So this is us, and I think we need to remember this could happen to any of us. So we need to approach this with a lot of humility. So how can we serve? And I think it's important that when we're thinking, of this specific service, which is so special, is it doesn't start and stop with the sustenance. It is about giving that dignity to that person, that forgotten person, that invisible person, that we send him the signal in everything that we say and do and interact, that they're seen, they're heard, they're valued, and they are part of a community, which is us. And then we impart that hope in Christ. That joy that we are given is what we can impart. And I think that's really, really important if we're going to serve. It's never about just the food. And it's about how we build the trust with them so that we can grow that relationship. That person, if we are able to connect at a spiritual level, that interaction can change them and can transform their lives, that they are loved. It's amazing when people feel that they are loved, many things happen. So the skills that are required for this specific ministry and mental health, we need a strong spiritual foundation. You know, we can't go out there without that strong spiritual foundation. We need to have compassion and empathy, and we need to develop effective communication skills. And those are the ones that we're going to focus on. And we need to develop relationships. We're going out there to share the love of Christ. So, and then of course, teamwork and collaboration. We go out together as a team and we're working together to support the ministry. And we need to be flexible and adaptable. So we'll start off focusing on communication and boundary setting. And we're going to look closer at communication. I love this video because it really spoke about one of the key communication skills, and the people that work on street ministry always say street ministry and healthcare as well have said this, how important this is. So I'll just play this video really quickly.
So you're just walking down the street going for coffee. You nod at the guy with his dog. You smile at the baby in the stroller. You get to the corner and practically have to step over a person sitting quietly on the sidewalk next to all the belongings he has in the world. Suddenly, you need to check your phone or read that fascinating billboard you've walked past a dozen times already. You know you do it, and so does the person you're ignoring. Maybe you think it's not polite to stare, and you're right. Maybe you think you're giving them their privacy, and sometimes you might be. But most of the time, making eye contact as you pass by will be noticed by someone who feels forgotten. It will mean a lot to them, and it will cost you nothing. By now, you might be thinking that, what about me? What if that person on the corner or in the alley or in the park is dangerous? These days, the world can be a scary place, and we all want to keep our families safe. But assuming a person is dangerous just because they're living on the street is usually wrong. Homeless people are just like you and me, sometimes just as scared, but without adequate housing, enough to eat, or even a bathroom. For instance, that guy you passed this morning, he had medical bills that eventually caused him to lose his apartment, and he hasn't been able to get first and last month's rent and a security deposit together to move into another place. The woman next to the gas station, just an ordinary housewife until her husband left her. Without his paycheck, the family quickly fell behind until they lost their house. She sold everything, including her car.
And it really is, I think.
So you're just walking.
What this video really emphasizes is the importance that many people that are homeless are invisible. People don't look at them. And the power of the connection through the eyes is really, really important. That's number one tip, is that we've got to look people in the eye and we've got to make that eye contact because it's huge. So this is John, and you're coming out in your ministry. How can you communicate with John? What would you do? You're coming out with your sandwiches.
Yes, a simple good morning, John. How are you? How was your week?
Yeah, yeah. So for sure, that's good. Smile. Yes, I agree. And there's a question here. I must have missed it. Is how to differentiate between a real homeless and somebody who's not? Somebody's asking that question from iPhone number 7. Do you want to elaborate on that question before I move too far?
Can I actually add to the question?
Sure, please do.
Yeah, there is a lot of people that you can differentiate between them if they are homeless or just you looking for money or looking for food, or there is a kind of variety people on the streets. So there is a good question to differentiate and sometimes run back and forth to get some more food.
And that's a good question. Now, does it make a difference in this ministry if somebody is homeless or not homeless? And I would love to turn that back to Shady.
Very good question, Miriam. It's a very you answered it basically. I don't think it matters. Like whoever is in need of food, come and take food. We're not gonna ask them where do you live or what do you do. Someone in need is someone in need. Maybe he is in a house, and as you just mentioned, he can't make the bills, or he doesn't have enough money to buy food today. He's lucky he still has a shelter. So that really doesn't matter for us at all at the service. In fact, a very big population that particularly that we serve on Saturday mornings are people of like very low income that know that we are there, and they would come, and basically it's like their shopping day where they know that someone could help them out to make ends meet. So the answer is it doesn't really matter for us if they're homeless or not, as long as they need something. Jesus said, whoever asks, give them. So we just give. And we pray always as we go that God would lead us to those most in need. And we have faith that God would send us those that are most in need and would be able to make a difference in their lives. I don't want to take much longer of your time, Mariam. Thank you so much.
No, it's a good question. So the ministry doesn't differentiate. So no, very good question. And I think there is another question. So somebody's hand is up, but it's an iPhone. So I don't know the name. I apologize, but please go ahead.
No, it's not a question. I just wanted to add to what Shadi was saying. Is I remember during one of the ministries when we were going out, or the service, I should say, there was a guy who was, fairly well dressed, looked like he was working, whatever. And we asked him, "Would you like a sandwich?" He says, "Yes." And so he ate, and he started telling us about his life. And he mentioned to us that he had the onset or the start of like paranoid schizophrenia. And he says, "I know it's going to happen. I'm going to be homeless soon. So I'm just bracing for it." And it really did. It was really sad to hear because like he knows it's coming and it's almost like he can't prevent it.
Thank you for sharing. So yeah, no, these cases are real. And I love what you all have mentioned, that the importance of eye contact, the importance of smiling, the importance, as you said earlier, of just greeting them and getting to know them. All these are small things, but are such meaningful things to them. And, in St. Peter's ministry, what I see the youth doing is, the residents love the youth. They have made a connection with them. They have established the safety. They look forward to this. These are the pimps, the sex workers, but they come and they are so protective of the youth, and they feel that they are seen. And the youth, because they feel they're misunderstood, really take off their masks and see the people. And that's where the connection happens. So I agree. Sorry.
Sorry, Mariam. If you can kindly just give us like a quick idea about what St. Peter's mission is, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people here would not know what it is, and maybe that would give us like a background if you want to refer to it further in the further down in the slides.
Thank you. Thank you, Shady. So St. Peter's mission is through SMSK, and we serve lower income housing complex in Scarborough. And this complex really attracts a lot of drug addicts, a lot of people with mental health disabilities, a lot of sex workers. So a very unique population. Yet the youth have established an amazing trust, and they've established very strong communication with the community. And so there is a lot of power there. They've formed their community with the mission, and the mission has formed a strong community with them. And it's very safe because the community is protective of the youth. And at the same time, we hear stories of people that were forgotten or unseen, but the mission has given them the dignity that we would hope to all have. It's given them the hope and the joy in Christ. So that's what we see in that mission. So seeing John is going to be really important. Hearing John and validating John is going to be very important. So this is one of the pictures, Shady, that you shared with me. So how to communicate effectively. It's very important to speak directly and be yourself. Don't use baby language. How are you? They're not a baby, they're an adult. Make eye contact, shake hands, be aware of your body language. Don't give unsolicited advice or judge people. You're not there in a place of judgment. You don't know where they came from. Don't blame the person, and see the person. When you go in, I think a powerful prayer is, God, allow me to see that person for who they are, for the beauty and how they were fearfully made. So, and this picture says it all. I think your ministry captured the soul of that person and the beauty of that person. So I'm going to play a very quick video on empathy. And empathy is another thing that we want to practice with this specialized group.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
And I love this video because the visuals around it, practicing the empathy, being at the same level of the person, being able to hear them and to build that connection, not trying to, as Dr. Brown says, create that silver, at least things are, but really feeling and connecting with them and being at that level. And of course, we know that Jesus practiced empathy and he went further to have compassion. And we saw that in many of his teaching. He was moved. He showed compassion. And he really role modeled for us that how do we connect with people? His connection with the Samaritan woman, his connection with the woman whose son was dying. And empathy is really feeling for somebody and showing them that you understand. And compassion is moving to that step further, with feeling for somebody and having a strong desire, as many of you here want to do, to help and understand their distress. So there is strong power there. I'm going to touch on mental health because Shady said that he wanted us to touch. Many people, on the street may suffer from mental health disabilities. And I think that the important thing for all of us to remember, it is truly a continuum. Any of us can be on that continuum at any point. You could be living a positive and healthy life, and then you have stresses that can tilt you. And then there are people that are, of course, suffering from severe mental illness. And again, treating them like us, it's any one of us could be impacted, is really important. And communication with people with mental health is like anybody, again, that you practice. It's all about the active listening that many of you will practice and probably do practice right now. It's about validating their experiencing, avoid dismissing or minimizing any of their struggles. Let them know how much you appreciate their openness. They're going to tell you things that you never expected to hear. And it's that level of humility that they've allowed you in that we should be practicing. And create a very safe and non-judgmental space for them. And let them really know that you genuinely care about their well-being. And I'm sure as a ministry, you've created that supportive environment. Ultimately, what people with mental health are like everyone else, they're seeking to be seen, heard, valued, and connected. And if we achieve those four, then we've made that connection. We practice our empathy, we see them, hear, value, and connect them. That's where the power happens. And again, we've seen the best role model in front of us was always Jesus. The power when he saw the Samaritan woman, the power when he sees the paralyzed person. I see you. It's not just, hi, how are you doing? It is being seen and heard is what transformed their lives. We remember Zacharias, he saw them. He saw this man sitting, but he's penetrated to his heart. And that's what made Zacharias change. So the other thing is, on the street, you're going to meet Sam, and Sam is distressed. What can you do? Do you walk away? What will you do when you see Sam in distress on the street?
I think if it's safe to do so, we can approach and ask, like, how can we help or what's causing the distress?
Yeah.
Is Joseph Gabriel able to talk? I think this is your specialty, Joseph. Anything?
I don't hi everyone. So I would just give him some space, to be honest. Like before I approached like people like when they were not feeling very well, not even like talking, just approaching to hand them something and then they step away from you. So sometimes they need space if they're like in that kind of distress as well. Yeah, they might need space until they cool off, and then you can start by offering something like a cup of water or something like that to ice, like to break the ice in a sense. But don't uh almost like when I ask them like, oh, can I help and stuff like that, they reject it. um they think that they don't need help in that sense, but and I just don't ask for like if I can help you in any way, in the sense of like intriguing that insecurity in them that they need help. So I just give them space and I offer like a drink or something like that. That's all.
That's great. And I think the needs to define what you would do to handle. Again, you know, these are some of the recommendations out there, but certainly whatever the ministry feels to protect the servants, I think
Oh, Miriam, sorry. For some reason, your voice has toned down a little bit. Something happened. If you can kindly come closer.
okay, how is that now? Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
Perfect. So certainly whatever the ministry, and as Joseph mentioned, if you know, and obviously you're a specialist in street nursing, that's what they recommend. But certainly if in the ministry you want to stay away from
No,
approaching.
sorry. He's an engineer. It's not his passion. He's a he's, I mean, like he always when we're in the street, like he always approaches the most in trouble. So that's what I meant by it's his specialty within the service, not in his career.
Okay. I mean, with street nursing, what they have often, you know, mentioned, the best way is to introduce yourself very calmly, explain why you're there as a ministry, what you're doing, be very polite, non-threatening, ask them what they see as the main problem, and don't attempt to touch them unless you may feel that they can hurt themselves, and then see if you can connect them to community resources. So those are some of the tips that are practiced in street nursing, and again, that you may want to adapt them for the purposes of the ministry and whatever rules you decide. So boundaries. I'll move on to boundaries. We talked about communication and how to communicate with the people on the street. Before I move on to boundaries, I did think I spotted a few questions, and one that that Amir mentioned. Most of the time we think we're not Christians. So I wasn't very sure. Is that a question? Is that a concern you want to discuss before I move on to boundaries? Amir? Okay, there was a comment there. All right, so I'll move on, and maybe after at the end, Amir may want to clarify, you know, what he meant by that statement, or how does he want to approach it. So boundaries is another thing that most of us are not very good at. And, you know, I think the question to many of you, are boundaries important? Is it Christian to have boundaries? And what boundaries should be in place for this ministry? So I'll open it up. Do you think that boundaries are important with street ministry?
Yes, certainly.
And so boundaries are very important, because boundaries really the whole armor of God. If you go into this ministry, which is very complicated, which is very complex, and you're not prepared, you will be burnt out. You will be challenged, and the devil, who's the roaring lion, will come after you. Not that you should be afraid, but boundaries act like your armor of God that you're putting on. And it really is set for enemies ministry to protect us from sin, to protect us from the relationship, to protect the relationship of those that we serve. It's to provide the safety, and it will also help us to grow in God. And establishing, once boundaries are set, it will help us. It really, good boundaries help us to align with the word of God, as I mentioned, protect us from the devil's snares, and it is an act of love for God, for yourself, and those people. And it will help you grow. So we're going to talk about different scenarios and how we would handle them. But it really is important to set them as Christ-centered, set them around the policies that you have within the ministry, or whatever the ministry recommendations are. It's important that you're self-aware and continue to exercise a lot of compassion and go back to your leaders. I think you met with a lot of situations where you don't know where to go and how to handle it, but it's really important to go back to Abuna, of course, and your ministry leaders. So I think the question is, should you give money if you're asked? And I would turn it back to Shady. What does your ministry advise?
We generally advise not to give money.
And that is, many times we've heard from Abuna John.
Sorry, Miriam, I apologize. The sound keeps cutting for some reason. I apologize.
No problems at all. Is this any better?
Yes.
Okay. I think that Abuna John always says, if you want to fracture the relationship, you give money, because the person is now reliant on that money. And your relationship becomes all about the finances and the dependency on the money. So it's ideal that you don't build it based on that, because the relationship will all be about the finances. Or if it's given, it should come directly from the ministry. And visitation, I think we've had that conversation together, Shady. The challenge with visitation is, as you know, like, you're serving the homeless, so less likely that you will be visiting somebody in their home. But let's say you built a relationship and that person has gone into a housing. I think it's really important that it is always done in twos, like, so that, you know, you're protecting, and always you must go back to your leadership and Abuna to evaluate the circumstances. And again, I'll turn it to you, Shady. What are your guidelines in this area?
Well, yeah, so as you mentioned, like, we've barely needed to do so, but like in very specific examples, for example, we had a single mother with 5 kids that visited us on the street a few times, and then it was Christmas. We got her address, and a group of servants, maybe there were actually 4 or 5 that went together and dropped off the gifts. So it's very, very specific circumstances, and we have not done that before. And yes, as you mentioned, I mean, we haven't done that, I think, other times. And I think it has to be under the guidance of Abuna or the lead servants like Antoine or Kamel or Joseph. and so that someone that has more experience to maybe evaluate the situation. And definitely it has to always be like the same genders to visit, or like if it's a lady, at least maybe 2 girls and a boy or something like that, so that there's also protection for the girls if there's needed. But again, we have not been in this situation much. Perhaps in your ministry, like St. Peter's Mission, it could be more because you actually visit them within their like neighborhood. It's a little bit different with us.
And the other thing is, can you share phone numbers? And so what does your ministry recommend? Can you share numbers of people on the street that needed? Do you encourage sharing numbers?
Again, most of them don't have phones, but like again, most of the lead servants that have been in the street for a long time, and we've visited a few people, like I mean, on the street, visited them several times and built some really, yes, if sometimes we've shared numbers, but it's not a general thing that every servant that comes into the ministry does it. But we do it for very specific cases under specific circumstances. So it's not something that we encourage, but we do not forbid either. And again, it's very important to keep gender clear, like a boy would share this with a boy and a girl would be with a girl if need be. This is what we have done. And again, it's not something that is generalized, but.
And so again, you will go back to your leadership. And so once you share numbers, do they become part of your file that you're following up, that you're sending certain messages, or how do you handle that?
So it's sometimes that we kind of send them, like if we have an event, we send them the flyer on the event. It's not very necessarily organized, but for example, some particular person, his name is Mike, he was in and out of the street and he needed some clothing, and we kind of forgot to get them. So we said, okay, just give us a text message next time we're coming so that we would remember to get you the specific thing. This would be the interaction. And so far, honestly, like the people that we've shared our numbers with, and please, Antoine and Camille, the leaders that started the service, please correct me if I'm mistaken. They never really abused the numbers or really called us more than like needed, like specific, like they just called that night of that we're coming and say, oh, please don't forget what I asked you to get that night. It's very specific. Joseph, if you have a different experience, Joseph also has been in touch with a lot of the refugees that were in the streets of Toronto lately. I think he was trying to get more in touch with them. So if anyone has a different view, please kindly correct me.
So from on my side as well, like I've shared like some like my number with a couple of people like from the refugees and those cases, just people that I had like a personal interaction with, and after a while they just needed like some specific stuff, so I told them I will share my number with you guys, and then I will organize that kind of like when I will come and give you those kind of stuff. So just for specific needs, but on a general like thing, I don't like necessarily like offer my number in the beginning, except if it's like a very specific case that someone is in need of like a certain thing, and he needs it like very soon, that he cannot wait for 2 weeks until we start, like we come again in our service run. So I kind of like try to provide it from other people or from like the church or like from the service basically, and meet him up earlier. It happened as well like that a specific person contacted me, and he was like following up with me with the stuff that is going on with the problem from the refugees, and I even invited him like one time for coffee. It's just like it's good for them to have like a personal interaction if we have like a free time, especially I'm accessible because I live in downtown next to them. So we met for coffee, and we got food together as well. And he just kept talking about like his case and stuff like that. I remember like like the thing here that they're like people with families that came from like houses like back in their countries, and now they're just in the street in an unfortunate situation. So we're trying to just make them feel that like we're here for you, we're surrounding you, we're hugging you with the same social community that you used to have like back home. You can still have it here. We have a lot to offer, and we're not offering it once in 2 weeks. We're offering it on a permanent basis. We're all around, you know. That's why I sometimes kind of share my phone number, because I just don't want them to be like forgetting us because we just come once in 2 weeks and once a week on a weekly basis. So it just gives them that feeling that we're always around, and we're trying to help us like with the best that we can do. And I guess like other people as well joined me in other like drop-ins by their location before they got moved to that other church that we just randomly just went to them to check on them, not necessarily giving them like a lot of like stuff that we had, but like they were so happy just to share like conversations with us at that point. I mean, that's related to the refugees. It's not necessarily the stuff that we do like all the time. It was just a specific case. Yeah.
So that's great. I mean, I think it's great like that you're sharing your phone numbers, and I think it's case by case, and and it's certainly a judgment call. Again, in St. Peter's, we don't encourage sharing just because of the population that we share and then the age of our youth, just to protect them. So we set a boundary, but I think your scenario, and your population better. So you're doing it case by case, and especially since, they're a group that has immigrated into the country, they need a lot of support. In your individual case, it's a different scenario. So, but in our case, it's a slightly different situation. And can they take your picture? How comfortable are you with picture taking either of them, and how do you guys handle it?
Camel is our photographer. Camel, if you want to share something. Camel does something very nice. But I want to just share what you do. Sorry, Camel. Camel does something very nice for them, is that on events, he would come up to them and take their permission. Most of the time, take their picture with Abuna when he joins us on the events, and then has an instant printer, and then he shares it with them, and it just really makes their day. Or take their picture with Santa Claus. And this is something that probably haven't maybe celebrated in so many years, like to meet Santa or something, because they're on the street, and then he shares it with them. So thank you, Camel, for taking this initiative. So go ahead.
Excellent.
Now let's see how is this correct or not.
I don't think there is. I think that your ministry is unique, and every ministry is unique, and your population. And as long as you are as a group and you've taken their permission, then that's great. I mean, for us, please remember, we are a different population, and our youth are slightly younger that are serving. So we set a little bit more rigid boundaries, but it really depends. So we encourage them never to take pictures, because again, we don't want people tracking our youth. And obviously you're doing great things as long as you ask them for permission. So that's perfect. And as you said, it builds the community, and you have trust. So I think it's great.
And to be honest, they typically don't have our phone numbers. Sorry, they don't have phones to take pictures of us for them. Like the most I've seen was a flip phone. So they don't take pictures of us. We just typically take a picture, and then we print it to them instantly, and it just serves as a memory. And he actually puts a sticker of a verse behind it to to make it more like spiritual as well. So, but I totally get your point. And them like taking pictures of us all the time, of course, that wouldn't be acceptable or reasonable.
Well, on the contrary, seem like on Saturday on the service when it gets started, I usually take some pictures, but some people got yelled at me because they don't want to be in the picture. And for sure, I'm not going to ask a big lineup to ask everyone can I take a picture or not. But I approached this guy telling him some of these pictures are just for the families that help us in order to sustain this service, and it's just nothing more, nothing less. So I'm just if you're not comfortable, I showed him my mobile and I deleted it for him. So I said, here it is, it's deleted. So don't worry, it's like we're here to serve everyone. Everyone here come to go happy and not angry and not disappointed, and just we're doing things for everyone here and to have to help everyone. So he after I talked to him about this way, so like he calmed down and he just kind of saying okay, kind of thank you, and that's it. So like was really mad and angry.
And for us, this is a situation at St. Peter's as well. This might not be applicable at all. There's a lot of flirting. It's the type of community that we serve. And so it's a big thing that we have to address with our youth, is to be very cautious. Don't encourage any type of flirtation. It's their way of seeking the attention, engage others in the conversation, and obviously flee from sin. But this is probably unlikely a challenge that you will see in your ministry. Do you see this problem at all in your community? It's somebody said it's very applicable. Yes. So how do you handle it?
Would like to take your advice on that. It is something that we like. Again, it's not like necessarily like, because we're a very big group when we come out, it's not like that, but I think it's very important. I would really like to take your like this part. I think this in boundaries, that would be, and the visitation, that would be the biggest one that we need to learn from you about it. Kindly. Yeah.
No, I think in St. Peter's there is a lot of flirtations. Don't forget, we deal with a big, a lot of pimps and a lot of drug dealers, and they're flirting and they're trying. And I think, they're harmless, but we often encourage our youth not to feed into it. I think it's important to engage others in the conversation. It is important to be polite, but set boundaries, because, again, it's a portal entry for sin, and I really say that is no one is immune from sin or falling in a trap. So I think on both sides, it's really important. And it's really important, I believe, for the relationship, that you keep the relationship very Christ-centered. And I think bringing others in conversations, and especially if you're, if a male is flirting with a female, is maybe, as a ministry, maybe we just assign somebody different and watch out for each other and flock around each other, so to prevent any discomfort in this situation. So that's what we do. And it's in Peter's ministry, what they've done is Abuna has requested that females are always interacting with females, males are interacting with females. So that's another boundary setting that Abuna and Pampanen in St. Peter's ministry have established, and it's worked so far. God help us, our residents still try, and we'll still continue to navigate through it. So that's what we're doing with flirting. And I think ultimately it is seeing everyone through God's eyes, you know, giving that unconditional love. I think Pantanen always expressed that people in the community get disappointed when we're serving, and we're offering a lot of love, and maybe sometimes we get lied to. We feel we're getting manipulated, and we shut down. And I think it's really important in these complicated ministries that we try to see people through God's eye, give that unconditional love, and learn not to take any of it personally, because none of it is personally. I think people are, you know, there's behaviors, there's different factors that cause them to do these things. And I think if we're centered in that, it's going to be really important. I've heard from Tantamnen, there's some people when they get lied to or they're manipulated or something wrong happens, they leave the ministry. And I think, you know, that's really the devil coming after us. We should always be communicating back with our leaders, continue to pray, recognize the fingers and the hands of the devil attacking us. Anything that you want to comment on this area? I'm sure you've experienced this kind of behavior.
Totally agree with you. Yes, we've seen like one time one person got extremely angry and almost wanted to get physical or get someone to actually come and like she went and got someone else to kind of, you know, get into some form of physical altercation or something. But thank God that didn't end up happening because she didn't get a jacket that she wanted to get. And then we just kind of, you know, calmed her down, and we kind of accepted later on that we shouldn't really hold things from people that come and ask. Like we shouldn't judge if they deserve it or not. Like if they're asking for it, we should just give it. And that same person later on started coming back to us, and for example, like she joined with us in a choir. We had a choir in the street, and she was just literally dancing almost in tears of joy to God. She was so moved, and she just became almost best friends with us. Since like we felt being manipulated at the time, like she didn't really need it or something, but we just said later on, we just thought, you know, just accept everyone, because, you know, if they're there, they need it. And we've heard, and we have this conversation almost every single time. How much should we give the people that ask more than once for the food, or should we give them more clothing? And then every time the answer comes to us from a different angle or from God, like just give, you know. No one is in the street coming and asking for food or clothes that is rich enough to, like, you know, just give it and just show the unconditional love, and it really goes far.
100%. And again, at St. Peter's, that's what we do. We give until the food is finished, and then we stop giving. You know, giving that unconditional love is really important. One thing I have to say that I've learned the hard way through God is no one knows the heart of man but God. And the people that I thought, you know, were not, you know, not so great turned out to be amazing. And the people that you think are amazing are, you know, are not so great. So I think remembering that everybody is in a journey, and we're there just to give a hand in that journey with a lot of humility is going to be really important, without judgment, with giving the unconditional love, without trying to figure out that we are a judge, as you said yourself, who deserves and who doesn't. We will never solve that complicated problem. And I always remind the youth that, you know, people are in a constant battle, and we're there to be a grounding force within that battle, you know, with themselves and their circumstances. And if we can offer that grounding force, and give that constant unconditional love, that's what will make a huge difference.
I have a question for you, Dr. May.
Yes.
There is some policies or some groups, they prefer offer only, not to interact or to even give a brochure. What do you think? Which one is the best?
So what we do is, and I think, so what we do is we build trust and we share our joy. And if they ask us, then we speak and we give. If we're asked, we're within our full rights to share Christ's message. And because in St. Peter's, we've started to establish the community trust, they're asking, tell me more. So we're not preaching to them formally, but they're asking us. So you can, if people ask you, you comply. That's how we're handling it. But again, I don't know the policy within your ministry. So that's something that as a group you need to discuss. But for us, they're asking and we do individual messaging if we're asked, but we don't offer it off, upfront.
No, I'm thinking about if like some people, they do the service for more than 4 years, just to give only without anything, without even like a talk or some like a verse to keep in the bag what do you think? I don't know. I think that's it's a good idea to add some like a verse in the bag. Sometimes they're gonna read it, sometimes it's not. I'm not sure. What do you think?
It depends on okay, so what we do is we share the verses verbally. We don't give them something. So one of the problems with even giving them something physical is likely two things will happen. Either their literacy level might not enable them to read it, and then you might within your ministry, I don't know the bylaws within your area if they will allow you to actually be handing out Christian materials.
So if I may, hi, Dr. Aidil. Hi, how are you? So in our service, it's a little bit different. Again, because you're going to people in their homes, maybe it's a little, but we're just on the street. We actually even hosted events that were with permits from the city. They know that we have spiritual talks. We know that we have Abuna comes up and talks to them. We have choirs. Every single time we go, we have a table to give away Bibles, spiritual books. Again, we don't hand out the Bibles. I mean, we say, here's the Bible. Anyone needs, please grab one. It's not like we have to, it's in the lineup and then everyone passing by should get one. So we obviously respect their autonomy and their wishes. But to answer your point, Dr. Adil, in our street ministry, we do this on a regular basis. And it's actually the one time we ran out of food and we still had books, and God really highlighted this verse to us very clearly, that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from God. God really highlights this for us, and we've been trying since that particular day that we ran out of food, and we kept going on with verses or psalms, and it really touched people that specific day, that we try to make sure that we're equally taking care of the spiritual material as much as we take care of the food that we prepare. And we have a team for spiritual, and people are very receptive, like beyond your imagination. And we're not forcing anyone to do anything. If they're not interested, we just let be. But and in our events, it's typically we have 2 talks and maybe 2 choirs, and it's just a pure Christian service. I hope this answered your question, Dr. Aidil.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, for we have some extra stuff, and our police officer was just in the car, and he offered us to say there is another place in this area with the major intersection. If you would like to go, there is a lot. So I mean that the people over there, they appreciate that. So my point is, we would like to touch the spiritual part, not all the. I know that the need is number one, but we would like to touch the spiritual part for these people. So
Yeah, we try to do that, Dr. Aidel, every single time.
This group, they offered not to talk, just to give and
No, no,
leave.
no, we are talking every single time.
Okay, so I'm gonna come join you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that's great. And I'm sure that praise and worship attracts a lot of people. So, it's wonderful that you're doing the choir and you're giving out messaging. And that's something that we're starting to consider and graduate in our ministry. So it's great to hear that you're having success in that area. I mean, I think ultimately it's praying for the ministry without ceasing, showing God's Christ love. It's a very special ministry, and practicing empathy and being very vigilant to protect the relationship by setting boundaries that your specific ministry sets that are applicable to you. And remember, we're called as soldiers to serve, to provide the dignity, to impart the hope. So, and I'll open it up to any questions at this point or comments. And I'm sorry I ran over your time.
It was beautiful. You can stay as long as you need it. We really learned so much, and it's so edifying and satisfying.
No, it's I learned a lot from your ministry, and I think it's great for all of us to learn, how to navigate these complex, underserved populations, because I think that the different churches now are building a lot of experience with it. And we hope that our youth continue to be very involved in it, because it's a very special ministry. And I think overall, what I say to people is I wear in my work a lot of masks, but when I'm out in the ministry, you have to take off your mask and connect human being on human being. The Christ in us connects with the Christ in them, and that's it.
Please, anyone, do you have any questions for
Mariam, I have one question for you. How do I get out of my mind the fact like there is a specific situation I go through, which is I'm in an Eastern store that specifically I see someone who reminds me what I used to see in Egypt, where most of people are just pretending to be in need. I know Shadi just like mentioned, we're not to judge and we're not to assess who is in need or not. It's just when it comes to that specific person, I just find it very hard to offer any help.
Sorry, can I add to this question? I had a similar question. I think it goes along those lines. Is there a limit, or can too much charity be harmful to someone? So St. Paul talks about you don't work, you don't eat. He talks about the widows, the real, identifying the real widows versus the fake widows. So in St. Paul's mind, like you give those who are actually in need and not just anyone. So is there, if we are helping those who don't need help, are we sort of handicapping someone because we're making them so dependent rather than giving them the tools to work and so on? So I don't know if it's, I think it's somewhat related to Camel's question, but please, yeah, I'd like to hear from you.
I'll I think we kind of touched on it. I think we know, but we really don't know. We don't know anybody's circumstances. We don't know who's suffering and who's not. And half the battle in life is people are not loved enough. So whatever we can give in front of God, we will give. If you have a sandwich and they come and ask you for it, I don't believe that you are judging. This ministry, you know, is beautiful. You're going out there, you're going to serve the community. Whoever needs, there must be a need. Maybe they have an emotional need. Maybe it's a socialization need. Maybe it's not a real, you know, physical food need, but they're coming and God is using you. It's, I think, always about our humility to, you know, to recognize that we don't know what we don't know, because we will never know their circumstances. And at the same time, allow God to work through us. That's what I would say. I think it takes a lot for people to go out on the street and take food. I think that, you know, you really put your pride down. I don't think it's an easy thing, nor can we underestimate it. But that's what, in my humility, I think, and I'll turn it over to Shady, because you've run this ministry for some time now with the group.
I have.
I
Go
want
ahead.
to say something quickly, I guess. Like, when St. Paul says this, it's basically talking about someone that wants to be completely cared for by the church, like giving him his wages or feeding. We're just giving a sandwich. Like, how could this disable someone? Like, we're just there even twice a month on a Saturday and twice a month on a Monday. That's not like, we're not even giving much to even think that we're giving anything. So this is just like, it's not like, again, like the widows that were in need of someone to take care and, you know, give them like their, pay their rent, put food on their table every day. This is just a very simple show of love, service, giving a sandwich, giving a small piece of clothing. I don't think, like, in our particular situation, we could ever reach too much charity. I wish we could. I really wish we could have enough money to, you know, cover them for the month of food or cover them for clothing for the year. But this is just something very simple. It's just a show of love.
It is. And Camille, I hear your challenge, and I think it's something that I'm always challenged with on different levels. Like, sometimes when I'm recruiting youth, I'll think, oh my God, these guys will not be able to pull it off, or these guys will. And God always deliberately proves me wrong, just to teach me, Mariam, you cannot judge anyone. You don't know the heart. And those that you think are able to do will probably not do, and those that can't. So I think, with a lot of humility, I think, take it to God and try to be centered in not trying to predict or think that you know, because the reality is we don't. And if you keep taking it back to God, I think He'll give you the answer. But that's just what I would say. We don't know. We will never know who needs, who doesn't need. We're not called to be the judge. We're called to love. And that's a simple answer.
Dr. Mariam, I have a question for you. Last one. What do you think is better, to gather them and give like a band and offer food, or to go from home to home, like whatever they staying in any place, and give them whatever you're gonna give, food or whatever? Which one is better, you find, from your experience?
It's very dependent on the community. Yani, you will have to know your community, and you're serving the homeless population. إحنا عندنا, we have some services for the homeless. We have some services for low housing facilities. فما فيش, I doubt that one is better over the other. It's just finding the need and responding to the need. That's what I would think. But again, you know, and I think you've obviously, as a community, found the need and you're filling the need. I don't think في أي حاجة تبقى حاجة أحسن من التانية. Just, you have a need, you've responded, you've opened your heart. The community now trusts you. They're expecting you. They're waiting for you. فأنتوا عندكم a momentum that you should continue to try and build.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, please? Yeah, I like to thank you so much. I'm Samir. Thank you so much, Mariam and Shadi, for all what you are doing. Actually, the language we speak, the presentation, the communication is amazing. But I would like to ask, and I see from the lecture here is that you have like a message that for the people that you are loved. Just I see you. We are the same persons, just a different situation in life. But always my son is asking me, like, do we have a system to change the quality of life of those people? As you mentioned early, that some people are like they have degree, they have education, they have experience in life, and in certain situation in their life they couldn't maintain. Do we have a plan or like social worker or somebody can help to change the quality of life to make these people are able to take control again instead of being on the street all their life? Thank you so much.
So I'll tell you what I think, ya Dr. Sameh, but certainly I will defer it back to the people who know the ministry. I think things take time, and I think you've responded to a need. You built the community trust. That's step number one. And as you get more integrated within the community, I think you can start to build connections. So, Masalan, I'll tell you, Abuna John, for instance, it took time for him to get access to some of the housing facilities. Then it took a lot of time to develop community trust and for the community to expect us and be happy to see us. And now he's thinking of maybe connecting some social workers or health workers or having a health van. So I think as the ministry, God willing, grows, I think you as a group will think, okay, how can we integrate better? And احنا في مصر يعني مصر الكنيسة كانت social structure عشان ما كانش في social structure. I think right now we're going through very difficult times in Canada. That's what I suspect. And I'm so excited to see the church go beyond our walls and go out to the community. And we're forming the church outside. Well, as we get to know our community, I think we have very smart people in this group. We'll start to see where the connections are. Maybe we need to get a health van and we work with the LINs. Maybe we need a social worker. But first of all, the thing that's very hard to do and establish is to respond to a need and establish the community trust. And I think you've gotten it from what I'm hearing you say. And you can, over the years, start building. Are you going to change everyone on the street? Probably unlikely. But as you build your ministry, you'll probably be making a lot of changes in the community. يعني دكتور سامح أنا مثلا with the ministry at St. Peter's, الناس اللي هناك, the fact that one of the kids remembered their birthday means the whole world for them. It changed their whole demeanor. That somebody مثلا حد من العيال without being told to do it اشترى له سلسلة كده من مصر. They took it back to them and they said, I bought this from Masr, made somebody's day, and they remember it and they're excited. And maybe they're saying to me, I'm trying to do less drinking. They felt that they were loved. They're trying this. I'm sure that if we can build the structure, I believe that it could be beneficial, but it will be up to this group and how you feel God calls you to do more and build on it. So Shady,
ميرسي
that's
خالص، أنا متشكر. لا ده جميل خالص. ميرسي، ربنا يخليك.
Dr. Shady, back to you to respond to that.
Nothing to add. I love what you said. Thank you.
And I'll check the chat box, so I don't think there's any questions in the chat. Well, I mean, if there's any other questions or comments or reflections you'd love to share, يعني I'm love to hear them. So it looks like probably people are ready to go to bed. Thank you so much. May God bless your ministry. What a beautiful ministry. And it's amazing that the church has gone out to the community. It's exciting times for us. And we thank God for the challenges that we see, because he's really prepared an amazing ministry that you all are leading. And I look forward to hearing about some of the great work and coming up to support the community. It would be so nice, and it would be an honor to serve with many of you. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you again so much, Mariam. It was very good to hear from you today and learn from your experience. Thank you again. And I'm sure it's not going to be the last time. So please forgive us if we bother you again. And of course, please feel free to join us anytime, like casually, Kita. You don't have to feel like any particular commitment. We're there every other Saturday, this coming Saturday in Moss Park. And then we kind of have 4 different truths that kind of satellite from that center. And then we're on Monday nights at 9:35 p.m. at Dundas Square and Peter Street and Queens Quay and Bathurst, like at different locations on Monday nights. Thank you again. And I'm just gonna end the recording and thank you. I really loved when you said that it's time for the church to step up in Canada, similar to Egypt. It's very true. It's very true. Yeah.
انا موافق كمان يا شادي، كلام جميل حقيقي. ميرسي خالص يا مريم، لان انا رايي انت وشادي وكل اللي موجودين يعني حاجه حلوه من الكوميونتي، ان احنا لازم يبقى في ليدرز وناس حلوه زيكم كده يغيروا الدنيا. فميرسي خالص عليكم وعلى الشغل اللي بتعملوه، يعني really appreciate it. Thank you so much.